Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 12 of MC200. Now that we have covered radio, we are going to move into the second form of broadcast journalism, which is television. So, we've been using Jeff Butera's Write Like You Talk book for all kinds of broadcasts, but he has some specific chapters about how to write for television. And I hope that you've read those chapters because they really provide a good foundation for writing for TV news. And that's what we're going to be discussing since your next assignment will, of course, be to write a TV script. Now, one of the key tips that Jeff Butera gives in writing to video is that words are nothing without pictures. The reason that television has become one of the preferred modes of learning and listening to news is because it's visual. It's easy to understand what's going on because you're not only telling the person what's happening, you're showing them what's happening. And so it's important for us as writers in television news that we are showing what we are saying. It's a phrase called say dog, show dog. So if I were writing about a local animal shelter and their needs, I might go to the animal shelter that will have all different types of dogs and maybe some cats and other animals. And I'm going to get video of all of that. Well, as I'm writing the story, I may write a line like the animal shelter says they need foster homes for older dogs. Well, if that's what I say, then what you should be seeing on the screen should be this picture, not this one. Even though this cute guy is adorable and it would be great video to use in the story, it doesn't match what I'm saying. And we certainly don't want to use a cat. And so when we're saying dog, we want to show dog. Whenever we are talking about something specific, we want our video to match it. So, the steps for writing to video that Butera outlines is to first start with a draft of the story. This would be similar to how you wrote your radio script. You just go ahead and get all the facts out, writing the story down, inserting the sound bites and interview sources where you need them, writing a lead in to the sound bite, just giving a basic outline. But then you need to look at the raw video that you shot while out in the field and make a shot sheet. A shot sheet is the list of video that you have available to you. It's very similar when you transcribed your interviews. It's similar to that, but instead of using the words, you're showing and describing the video that you have that is raw and that you can match your story elements to. So you want to note any shots that match parts of the draft that you've written. And you're going to start lining up those pieces of video to the draft that you've already written. Note distinctive or memorable shots and try to emphasize those either by writing to that piece of video or putting them up top where the viewer is going to be more likely to see them. We want to write the story again now that we've gone through all of our video clips, and we want to think about what video would cover each part of the story. If you've written something in your draft and you don't have any video to match it, you really have two options. You can either go back into the field and try to shoot more video, or you can rewrite the script so that you find facts and information that matches what you can see. Now, once the video is cut and edited, you should read the story script out loud in real time and watch the video that you've edited to make sure that it matches your words. Here's an example of a shot sheet since I referenced it. These are some of the things that you would need to talk about. There are different types of shots, such as a wide shot, which is, of course, like a wide lens photo. A very wide shot obviously shows more of the landscape. A mid shot or a medium is just kind of in the middle. It's what you would typically see. And then as you get medium close up, and extreme close up, you're getting closer and closer to the subject that you're filming. Camera angles are at eye level, high angle, which would be shooting down, low angle, which is shooting up. And then there are all different kinds of camera angles, but those are the primary ones that we use for news, the eye level, high angle, and low angle. We have different kinds of movements as well. Static means no movement, a pan means left or right, tilt means up and down. And then you have all different kinds of zooms or rack focuses that you might use as well. These are all very technical. We don't need to know all of these right now. I'm just showing you the amount of description that's going to go into your shot sheet. And you want to note any audio that is on the clip, such as natural sound, voiceovers, if you used a lav or a boom mic. Again, you don't need to know exactly what those mean. Those are what our upper level broadcasting classes are for. But here's an example of a shot sheet for a particular story.
And letting my imagination run wild. Hello? What? A Lego convention? I'm on my way.
So you can see that just within 11 seconds of video, I have 7 different shots. Now, this is one of my friends, Bryant Somerville, who's a reporter. He's excellent. He tends to use a lot of creative shots and videos. Within his stories, and he's really great to writing to the video he has. But you can see a lot of times it takes imagination and a lot of material in order to get what you really want for your story. Now, in addition, Butera tells us that we should be telling our viewers what they're seeing. So you want to tell them what's in the video that they should be paying attention to. If there's any kind of activity in the video that is notable, make sure you reference it, like a fight or a police chase. If they need to be watching for something, and you want to highlight great video. And Butera mentions 3 ways to do that. The first is called a nap pop. This is when you have a speaker who is talking, and then you let the sound that is on the video play naturally, and no one is talking over it. So it kind of pops through with the natural sound from the video. Here are some examples of that.
Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
A Florida deputy indicted for excessive force.
So you can hear the natural sound of the security camera footage that they use, and then they go back to the anchor talking.
These while it increased for white workers. Plus, he tried and failed, then succeeded again. Which presidential candidate is in a copyright fight after using Adele's song in his campaign video?
And so they had the anchor talking, and then they let the music video play, becoming natural sound or a nap pop, and then the speaker begins again. It really highlights the music video. You can also do this through graphic layers. He talks about like adding in arrows if you need to point to something. Often we'll use circles to circle a particular point that we want the viewer to look at. So you can use graphics overlaid on top of video to point out important or great video pieces. And then you can also write to that video. Take a look at this, and when a viewer hears that, it snaps their attention back to looking up, because often viewers are watching the news distractedly and they may not always be watching the video. But if you cue them into uh, like words that make it seem like they need to be paying attention, they will. We also want to show great video multiple times and not be afraid to do so. With this security camera footage, for instance, since they're talking about police abuse, I would imagine in the regular story, this is just the tease, but in the regular story, they're going to want to show that kind of video a lot because it tells the story in a very visual way. We want to avoid wallpaper video. That's any kind of video that doesn't really match what's being said, or it's old, it doesn't really show people. And honestly, this video about migrant workers is somewhat wallpaper, but also not. It tells the story of these people, but that story idea isn't very visual in nature. So they're doing the best that they can. But we do want to avoid video that doesn't really match, video that just shows hands. Like if you've ever seen health stories about people who are smoking and they've come out with a new smoking study or something, and you'll just see like fingers holding cigarettes or extreme close-ups of the cigarette. We want to avoid that as much as possible and instead get interesting video to really highlight what's going on. We also want to try to avoid meeting video. Some people in the business call this BOPSA video or bunch of people standing around. If you've ever seen a news story of like a city council meeting or something like that, you'll just see this room with a bunch of officials and it's just people standing there. There's nothing really interesting going on. That's wallpaper video. It doesn't really need to be there. Instead, you as the journalist should go out and get video of whatever that meeting was about. So if they were talking about repaving a road, for instance, instead of showing the meeting, go out and show the road that needs repaving. That's much more interesting in a visual storytelling perspective. In terms of scripting television stories, we use the same type of script as you did in the radio segment, but you'll need additional cues. So you'll need a video, graphic, or package roll and out cue. So how we had the soundbite roll in the previous radio script, now we need to also add video to that because you're wanting the audience to see the video that's running. We also need video descriptions on the left, which you can see under the video roll cue. This ensures that the director is seeing the right video in the monitor that is meant to be there. This also challenges us as journalists to write to the video that we have. So all the video descriptions on the left should match what the script says on the right. We also need to have lower third graphics for video and interview sources within broadcasting. This is because we need to help identify visually where the story is, what it's about, and who is speaking. So you'll notice these lower third supers on the left-hand column, and those are graphics that pop up while those videos are playing. It's still very important to write a lead-in intro into your soundbite. So make sure that you continue to do that. Here they say the fire chief says the location made it hard for first responders to reach those flames and for people to escape. So we have the person's title and what they're saying. It would be even better if we could add his name, but perhaps his name isn't the most important information. So the reporter cut it in this particular instance. When you're thinking about what stories to choose for television, the most important thing, of course, is to think about the medium. Think about the visual aspects of the story. How can you tell the story in a visually interesting way with either video or graphics? You also need to find sources who will appear on camera. And if you have had trouble finding people agreeing to interview with you for a print story, an online story, or even a radio story, imagine how much harder it is to get someone to appear on camera because so many people are just generally camera shy. And so sometimes the best sources will not want to appear on camera and you'll have to find someone else. You need to think about how much time you have and what format of story you have as well. If you have a 30-second script, you don't need to be choosing a very complicated story because you have to, think about how much time you really have to be able to share. And we'll talk about the different types or formats of stories like VO, VOSOTs, and packages here in a second. But that's also going to make a difference as well. If you need to tell a controversial story, but you've only been assigned a VO, that's probably not the best idea because you need to be able to hear from multiple sources in a VOSOT. So keep those in mind. In addition, you need to find stories that you can tell conversationally. So if there's lots of complicated jargon, it's probably best that you leave that to a digital story or try to find new ways to rewrite it and simplify it. And then one of the best places to look for story ideas for television is really to look around you. You should use your eyes and see what's interesting to you around campus or town And those are going to be the most visually interesting stories as well. So be thinking about as we head into next week, what stories you're going to want to pitch, because those pitches will be due next Wednesday for your television script. Now, we just talked about some of the types of news stories, but let me go into a little bit further detail here because this will help you with your assignment for this week and next week, which is a newscast evaluation. I'm going to have you watch a newscast from a local television station, a 30-minute show, and fill out a spreadsheet about the different types of stories that they use. So, in order to know what types or format of stories that are being played, you can use this video. So, the first type of story is the most basic, it's a reader. A reader or an RDR are stories where you're only seeing the anchor or reporter. There are no video or graphics to where you cannot see the anchor anymore. So, a reader can include an over the shoulder graphic, which we'll see here in a second from Valavision News. But typically, a reader doesn't have anything that covers the anchor's face. The entire story is told without visuals for the most part. Now, a full screen graphic is a graphic that is taken that fills up the whole screen. It would cover the anchor's face, and it's taken with information to describe the story. Just like a reader, you're going to want to keep these short because they're not as visually interesting as, say, a video. Now, a video, which we call a VO in the business, it stands for video. A video is a story that usually starts out with someone introducing a line or two, and then you take the video. And the video plays while the reporter anchor talks live. The audio is not on the videotape that's playing, it's being spoken by the person live. And so it's important to note that if you're doing a video and editing it, you are not editing your voice track onto it. You're only presenting a video that has no anchor voice or sound on it. Now, a VOSOT or a video SOT is a video that plays while the reporter anchor talks live, followed by an interview soundbite, at least one. And sometimes you can have more than one, like a VO SOT, which would be video that plays, and then you go into an interview, and then you go directly into a second interview. You can also have a VO VO, and that's when you start with the anchor introducing it, then you play the video, then you play the soundbite, and then video comes on the back end of the soundbite, and that's how the story ends. Now, all of these are live and spoken by the anchor reporter instead of being on a track or recorded onto the tape. A package, on the other hand, is a full story that is told with a reporter track. So you're recording your voice onto the tape, it is not played live. So, a package is often reserved for bigger, more important stories, although that's not always the case. We do have feature packages that are a little more soft news, but they tend to be stories that really draw heavily on news value. And these are typically a bit longer, typically 1 minute 15 to a minute 30 in length. It's rare to have a package that would last over 2 minutes. My former news director had a saying that said, uh, what's 2 minutes and good? Nothing. And so it tells you that you really have to tell these stories very quickly. So let's go through these different types of stories with some visual examples from you. I'll be using Valavision News just so you can see that it is possible to do these types of stories as a student. And please keep in mind that these student anchors are they did not have teleprompter when this was running, and that is very hard to do as an anchor. So we should support these students who are doing this. So here's a reader with an over the shoulder graphic.
This week, SGA is hosting a blood drive this Thursday from 10 to 5 in front of the CAF. COVID safety precautions will be enforced with both donors and those working at the blood drive. Contact the SGA for more information.
So you can see that we only have the anchor here. There is an over the shoulder graphic that has a little bit of information on it, but it's not a full screen graphic. So we would actually call this a reader. And if you wanted to be really specific, you could say reader with over the shoulder graphic. But this would be classified as a reader because we can see the anchor the entire time. Now here is a full screen graphic. So you can tell the difference between the reader with the over the shoulder graphic and a full screen.
Polling locations across Alabama will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow, as long as you are in line to vote by 7 p.m. You will be allowed to vote, no matter how long it takes to cast your ballot.
So you can see that in this story, we actually never see the anchor, which is fine. You don't always have to see the anchor for every single story. So this story would be a full screen graphic because all you can see is a graphic. Here's an example of a VO. This is, as a reminder, a VO is just when you have an anchor that introduces the story, or you can go straight into VO, which sometimes happens. So this is actually a VO, I think, without an anchor intro. But it's just video that plays while the anchor is speaking live from the news desk.
Up continues in Alabama after Hurricane Zeta left a path of destruction across much of the state. Here on campus, several trees were blown across or damaged by Zeta's high winds. The National Weather Service Birmingham office says Shelby County had estimated wind gusts between 45 and 55 miles per hour. According to Alabama Power, more than 500,000 customers across the state lost power during the storm.
So you can see that, excuse me, you can see that the entire story is told with video rolling on top of it, but the actual presentation of the story that the person who was speaking was doing so live. I should also note that this video is really engaging. It's great video that, you know, if you were just writing about this story in print, you wouldn't have these awesome visuals of all of the damage. And this is part of what makes television news such an interesting medium. Look at that lovely close up with the beehive inside of the fallen tree. Like, that is great video. I believe that one of our students, Jonathan Weed, shot this, and he did an excellent job. So here is a VO SOT VO. As a reminder, a VO SOT is video that plays followed by an interview. So here's that.
The pandemic is changing the look of one of UM's most notorious philanthropy events. Alpha Gamma Delta's Lip Jam will be virtual this year.
So you can see we had the anchor intro. Now we are taking the video.
Alpha Gamma's philanthropy chair, Abby Self, explains how fraternities and sororities will compete in this year's competition. The pandemic is changing.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear the SOT lead-in there that was used?
The look of one of
Let's listen to it again.
And sororities will compete in this year's competition.
They'll film themselves doing like a choreographed.
So here is the SOT, sound on tape, which is the source interview.
And then they'll submit the video and we're going to judge them.
The theme for
And
this
it goes
year's
back
online
to
Lip
video.
Jam is Disney movies. Alpha Gam will live stream the event Tuesday night.
So that's what makes that particular story a VO SOT VO, because after the soundbite or interview source plays, then it goes back to VO. So that's why it's a VO SOT VO as opposed to a VO SOT. And now here's a package.
President Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden are making their final pitch to Americans ahead of Election Day tomorrow. La Bernal has the latest from Willington, Delaware.
So, can you tell the difference between the anchor who is talking live and now we have the reporter who is a different person in this instance talking, but their voice is recorded onto the tape. So there is no live element to this package. And this is all edited together into one file.
President Trump
fan the flames of hate all across this country.
We have sound bites.
Our economy is now growing at the fastest rate ever recorded.
President Trump
And
heading
also
up a blue
reporter
map of the
tracks.
states for 5 rallies, ending in Michigan, beginning in North Carolina.
Obama.
So we're going to have multiple interviews within one story. And of course, with political stories, it's important to balance the interviews that you use
Both candidates making stops in the critical
using
battle for
graphics
the
and
state.
video here to be able to show both
Biden
videos.
spending most of the day reaching out to voters in the state with his vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris, after campaigning earlier in Cleveland.
On the other hand, our future is
So we end on a soundbite here and then a reporter track with a tag. And a reporter tag is just when it's like, I'm Danielle Devers reporting for the University of Montevallo. So it's just a closure on to tell the viewer as well as the director, hey, the story is ending. So those are the different types of news stories, but keep in mind there are many variations on this. So here's a VO graphic, for instance.
Hello and welcome back to Vallow Videos. I'm Tariana Richardson. Thanks so much for watching. We are just hours away from polls opening in the 2020
So
election.
here's an anchored
but millions
lead.
of voters across the country have already made their voices heard.
Now
More
we
than
have VO
91.6
with a
million
graphic on top of
Americans
it.
have voted so far.
So you can
That's
see that we have live video playing on the right, but there is still a graphic on the left that provides information. So again, there's many variations on these, but you get the idea of what the basic types of news
Hello.
stories are. So in order to do your newscast evaluation assignment, I want you to watch an evening local newscast on a local network. So this is not CNN, it's not Fox News. You're picking ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox in order to watch one of the local Birmingham stations. If you are living in another city right now due to the pandemic, it's fine to watch your local station, but don't do national news or cable news. So I have created an Excel spreadsheet with different columns, and you can follow the assignment instructions to know how to fill in those columns. After you do that for the newscast, I want you to write a short reflection on the newscast and then turn in everything to Canvas by Friday, November 20th. I should note that it is going to be important that you get one of these newscasts recorded because you're going to need to go back and forth in order to kind of think about, you need to pause and rewind and things like that to think about the different types of formats, topics, etc. So I highly suggest that you find a way to record a newscast or watch it on a live stream that can be paused and preferably be able to rewind it as needed. So now that you have learned a little bit about how to write for television news specifically, I want you to go into the discussion board and discuss the future of TV news. Make sure you're doing the newscast evaluation assignment. Don't forget that your radio scripts are due Monday, and be thinking about possible TV pitch ideas for next week. Hope you guys have a great weekend.